For all of recorded history, people have looked at Stonehenge in wonder. Its mysteries have evaded the scientific world for 400 years. Standing over the British countryside for 2 millennia, the earliest recorded and detailed study of the area came in 1620. An archaeologist named Inigo Jones conducted study of the stones and the area's historic relevance. His findings at the time gave direct credit of the build to the Romans who had occupied the area for the first 400 years after Christ's death, noting that the local farmers and herders could not have built such amazing structures. Stonehenge is not the only earth project found in southern England, but is rather one piece of a larger series of works and, as such, is probably the most famous megalith found in England and for that matter, around the world. Stonehenge is an early Bronze Age structure. It stands up to 25 feet tall for the tallest center stones, and averages 18 feet tall for the outer sarsen stone circle. Being built starting around 3,000 years before Christ, the newest phases of its construction and other similar works in the area are as late as 1500 years before the death of Christ. Stonehenge is located near the Marlborough Downs, in Wiltshire, England. An area that is scattered with sandstone glacial leftovers. These large sandstone rocks, known as the sarsen stones, are naturally occurring across much of the British Isles. The term sarsen or sarsen stone arose in the Wiltshire dialect. It was the common name for the followers of Islam and as such became an extension for anything not of Christian origins. Whether it be pagan or Islamic origins was of no importance to the early West Country inhabitants. These sarsen stones are the leftovers of the sandstone cap that once covered southern England before the last ice age. These stones have been torn from their base structures, the mountains, smaller hills, and outcroppings of rock. They were then carried abroad and deposited as the glacier moved downhill toward the lower-lying lands of the south. The early settlers of this area, referred to by the classic scholars as Britons of Britannia, took to using the smaller, more manageable stones in their early earthworks. Some of the earliest earthworks in the area are simple hill forts and earthen barrows. One such earthwork, belas knap, is a chambered long barrow that is dated to around 3700 before Christ. These earthen works are man-made communal burial tombs. This long barrow is one of the oldest examples in southern England. It is located just 70 miles north of the Stonehenge site and deploys many similarities in construction methods. The belas knap long barrow measures an impressive 180 feet long, 60 feet wide, and over 14 feet in height. These simple structures are the predecessors to the Stonehenge project and others similar to it in the English countryside. The builders would accomplish the construction of Stonehenge, or the area that would be known as Stonehenge, in 3 phases. Within each phase of construction, there is considerable evidence of different designs being implemented and then later changed. In total, the construction process lasted about 1500 years. The first phase of construction was small and simple. Most likely at this time the builders were studying the sky and learning about astronomy. Learning how to align these projects with astronomical events. This period of construction lasted for about 100 years and is marked by the placement of the heel stone and the station stones. The heel stone and the station stones align with the summer and winter solstices. During the second phase of construction, the earthen henge and ditch are constructed. Consisting of a circular enclosure, it is more than 330 feet in diameter. The construction of the ditch was paired with 2 embankments. One, a smaller, lower bank, was constructed along the outer edges of the ditch, while a higher, larger embankment was built to the inside edge. This time period in the build is usually used to mark the beginning of Phase 2, although some scholars believe the ditch and embankments are part of Phase 1. The Aubrey holes are then dug and used as foundations for wooden poles. The Aubrey holes are named so after their founder, John Aubrey, who in 1666 observed a series of 56 round holes dug perfectly around the perimeter. Making note that of the holes, they were all dug to a specific depth of 3 feet 5 inches. Leading some researchers to believe that the holes were used for installing wooden posts prior to the large stones arriving during Phase 3 of the project. There is also some speculation that the Aubrey holes were excavated for cut bluestones to be inserted. though very little evidence exists to support either claim. The measurements of the outer bank, the ditch that was dug, the inner embankment and the Aubrey holes are as follows. The outer embankment is 360 long feet, the ditch itself is 330 long feet, the inner embankment is 300 long feet, and finally, the Aubrey holes are 270 long feet. A long foot was the traditional form of measurement and is equivalent to 1.056 of a modern 1-foot measurement. The second phase of construction lasted for 300 years. Little change occurred during phase 2 of construction. Although there is sufficient evidence to show the use of the site continuously during phases 1 and 2. There are limited construction tasks. These tasks, however, for their time period and the tools that were available, were monumental for the early Britannia settlers. Around 2,500 years before Christ, the first stones start arriving on site at Stonehenge. There are 82 bluestones at the Stonehenge site that came from Preseli Hills in Pembrokeshire, Wales. These stones traveled an impressive 140 miles from the quarries they were cut from. The bluestones are the first to arrive on site and originally were constructed in a concentric half-circle shape. The large sarsen stones that everyone knows as the iconic Stonehenge image, in fact, didn't arrive for 1,000 years after the work begun. Around the year 2000, before Christ. These 30-ton sandstone megaliths are moved to form the 100-foot diameter outer circle, and the 5 horseshoe-shaped trilithons known as the inner circle. The last and final part of Phase 3 includes the placement of the sarsen stones. Then after 500 years or so, the builders start to move the first, original bluestones. These bluestones are moved into the traditional pattern we see today, outlining the larger sandstone megaliths. They form an oval perimeter around the inside of the outer circle, and a horseshoe shape inside the trilithons at the center. The final placement of the bluestones is considered the topping out point for the Stonehenge builders. The dating by researchers points to a starting time period for the build of about 3,000 years before Christ, with its completion happening around 1,200 years before the death of Christ. Although the Greek explorer Pytheas of Massalia had explored and wrote of the area in 325 before Christ. No mention is made in any Greek history of this magnificent structure. Also, the Romans all controlled all of southern England south of Hadrian's Wall for the 400 years following Christ's death, and still, the first written accounts of Stonehenge only appear in the 12th century AD. Geoffrey of Monmouth writes, "The Stonehenge was brought from Ireland after being crafted in Africa." In his book The History of the Kings of Britain, he tells the story of what and how Stonehenge monument came to be. How it was King Arthur, and the wizard Merlin, that brought the structure to England and its importance thereof. Merlin spoke of the medical value of the stones, about their origins on the African continent and how the employment of giants had transported the stones from Africa to Ireland. Through modern sciences, these stones have been traced to areas across the British Isles. Using advanced chemistry, researchers have located similar trace minerals in the stones at local quarries of both England and Ireland, shedding some light on their origins, while also creating more questions for researchers to answer. These questions lead researchers to debate how these stones were moved. Some researchers highlight the Roman and Egyptian civilizations, how they used sleds and rollers to move massive stones for long distances. Others have suggested that the glaciers that once covered the northern landscapes could have torn them loose and deposited them across the countryside. The history of Stonehenge is shadowed in mystery, leaving everyone that looks upon it to stand in awe and wonder. How were these massive stones handled, and for what purpose? Stonehenge is possibly the oldest man-made structure. It is considered by Christian scholars to be pre-flood, or antediluvian, the time period between the fall of man and the Great Flood. The Bible speaks of this era as a time of great wickedness. There were Geborim or giants in the earth in those days, as well as Nephilim. Some Bible translations refer to the two as one in the same. The Geborim were usually powerful. Genesis calls them mighty men which were of old, men of renown. So no matter which narrative you choose to follow, the one of human will power and determination, that of divine intervention, or that of wizards and magic. Stonehenge will undoubtedly keep us mesmerized and confused as to its exact origins. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave us a like and a comment. Maybe a video suggestion. Hit that subscribe button, and stay up to date with our latest content. Thanks for watching.